In this video, we're going to talk about a change in perception where there is a shift in how somebody or something is viewed. In this example, we have Nelson, and Nelson is typically open-handed. And so words that clue us in that we are dealing with a shift in perception is typically, because after the comma, we know that the blank, or that which comes in the second part of the sentence, the blank happens to come in the second part of the sentence here, is opposite of what's going on in the first part of the sentence. And here we have this person's open-handed. So typically he's open-handed, comma, it's almost like saying but. So we know that there again is a contrast, so we want the opposite of open-handed. So you can choose your own word and match. Of course, it helps to know what open-handed means. Somebody who's open-handed is generous, and you can almost imagine that they have their hand open, they're giving. And so we want someone who is the opposite of giving. So someone who holds on to everything. Now, notice A here is close-minded. Look how literal that is. They're trying to trap you there with, oh, the opposite of open is closed. But it's not closed-minded. It's the idea that someone doesn't want to give. Garrulous. You definitely want to know your vocabulary here. And this is a very important word. It's important because it shows up a lot. It means talkative. So we can get rid of that because we're not going for talkative here. We're going for someone who is not generous. Parsimonious, you may not know. It is an important GRE word, but let's come back to it. Somebody who's tactless, does not behave the proper way in social settings. That is not what we're going for. And finally, admonitory, which you may know the word admonish, which means to warn or caution beforehand. That is not the opposite of generous. And so just like that, we can arrive at the answer through our process of elimination. And parsimonious means somebody who's stingy, not giving, the opposite of open-handed. So this is a pretty straightforward sentence. I mean, besides maybe the difficult vocab word parsimonious. So let's take a look at an example that is much more difficult. Wow, look at that thing. Huge. But if you remember what we've learned in other videos, you want to cut through the noise, break down the sentence, simplify it. So let's do that here. Along a cornerstone of modern neurology. This is just giving us background information. What follows is important here. The idea the brain is fixed has not only been challenged. And if you read on, it says, but has been convincingly refuted. So the idea that the brain is fixed is no longer something people believe in. So people believe that the brain is opposite of fixed. So again, notice that change in perception there. So opposite of fixed is changing. The brain is changing, not fixed. That's the current view. Notice that I glossed over this or totally ignored this because, again, this is just background information into how it was refuted. But the idea here is today, brain is not seen as fixed, but as changing. So now continue on here. To assert that the mature brain is anything but blank is tantamount to scientific heresy. So we know it is changing. To say it is anything but changing, and so now we can put our word in here, is equal to, and the word tantamount means equal to scientific heresy. And it's also important to note that anything but means not. So to assert that the brain is not changing, that is fixed. Assert that the brain fixes heresy in the science circles, because today it's been so convincingly refuted that the brain is fixed, and therefore we have the word changing here in the blank. So we've come up with our own word, and now we have to eliminate. So you probably look at A and say, oh, look, plastic. Knives, fork, plastic plates. Yeah, that can't work. But let's actually come back to this. Shiftless. Notice here that, again, we're going for where that's changing. Shift is change. Shiftless actually doesn't even work in this context here. So get rid of B. Shiftless definitely does not mean changing. Immutable is the opposite of changing, something that is fixed. So again, we can get rid of that. Alert does not relate to changing. And fertile, something that gives rise to lots of ideas. It can be used literally to refer to a field that grows lots of crops, but also to perhaps a brain that gives rise to a lot of ideas, but that doesn't make any sense here. And so just like that, you can see we're left with plastic. Now, plastic has a second definition. It means changing, adaptable, not fixed. And just like that, there's our answer. But again, note the shift in perception. If the sentence is long like this one, be able to break it down the way I did. Come up with your own word. And you'll notice that sometimes you just take a word in the sentence, such as fixed, and see what happens to fixed. Fixed, well, after that it becomes not fixed. But then it comes back to the very end here, the anything but, it goes back to fixed. So you can kind of see the sentence taking a word, coming up with the opposite, and then flipping it back again. And on the more difficult GRE text completions and sentence equivalence questions, you'll see that double reverse. But key to this video, of course, is to note the shift in perceptions. And if it's simply an adjective in the first part of the sentence before the comma, and there's no other shifting after the comma, the blank is going to be opposite to a word before the comma.